So what is the reality behind these elite gatherings? Well, while the Bilderberg Group gatherings, Davos, G7 summits don't constitute a formal world government, they do provide a clear window into how elite networks align interests, shape priorities, and consolidate influence across borders. These closed-door meetings allow political leaders, central bankers, CEOs, and defense officials to engage in candid discussions about global economic trends, technological shifts, geopolitical tensions, and crisis management, away from cameras and public scrutiny. Proponents argue that this allows for honest dialogue without political grandstanding, but secrecy has a cost, because that secrecy itself breeds suspicion, creating fertile ground for conspiracy theories that claim these gatherings are the hidden engine of world events. Yet dismissing these meetings as harmless networking is equally naive. While there is no single global cabal orchestrating every war or every economic shift from these rooms, the reality is that global policy often emerges from elite consensus rather than through democratic deliberation. The alignment of interests forged in these gatherings can influence which conflicts receive an intervention and which are ignored, which economic models are prioritized, how technological policies are developed, which industries receive favorable treatment. It isn't a matter of direct commands being issued, it's rather a convergence of priorities amongst those with the power to implement decisions. This informal alignment can steer the global agenda without public input, shaping the world in the image of those who benefit most from the current systems. More than this, these gatherings reveal a truth about power. It rarely needs to conspire when its interests already align. Shared worldviews among elites, grounded in the preservation of stability, market access, and technological dominance, drive coordinated action without overt collusion. The fear of elite gatherings controlling the world is often rooted in the discomfort of recognizing how power concentrates, aligns, and reproduces itself behind these closed doors without needing to hide in the shadows. So the real issue isn't the presence of conversations, it's the absence of accountability and transparency in decisions that affect billions. The Bilderberg Group, Davos, similar gatherings reveal how global elites align interests behind closed doors. Yet even these gatherings are just one part of a larger machinery, a machinery of lobbying, corporate power, and geopolitical influence that shapes the world not through a single meeting, but through the daily operations of a system designed to protect itself. Because sometimes the real power isn't hidden in secrecy, it hides in plain sight, protected by laws and normalized by culture. This is the reality of systems of power, not a single cabal. It's comforting to imagine a single shadowy cabal controlling world events. It simplifies chaos into a villain narrative. But power doesn't operate so neatly. Lobbying groups write laws, corporations fund campaigns, military-industrial alliances shape foreign policy, while financial institutions dictate economic policy across borders. These aren't the workings of a single conspiracy, but of systems aligned to preserve power and to preserve profit. Influence multiplies through legal structures, media narratives, and economic leverage, reinforced by institutions that prioritize stability over any kind of structural change. Networks of elites often act in concert, not because they meet in dark rooms to plot, but because their interests align within the system. And the real danger within the systems in our world is not an all-powerful hidden hand orchestrating every event, but in systems that systematically concentrate power while evading accountability. These systems, rooted in corporate structures, lobbying frameworks, and legal loopholes, enable a select few to exert outsized influence on policies, markets, and even on wars without the checks and balances that democracy promises. Power in these systems often hides in plain sight. For example, corporations legally funding campaigns ensuring candidates remain aligned with business interests. Lobbyists, they draft legislation that directly benefits their clients, often, very often, at the expense of the public good. Media conglomerates shape narratives that protect existing power structures, framing debates and defining what is and isn't normal. International financial institutions, for example, also impose economic policies on entire nations, constraining their sovereignty in the name of stability. All of these mechanisms create a world where decisions that impact billions are made by just a handful of individuals and institutions, insulated from the consequences of those decisions. The public may vote, protest, and demand change for what that's worth, but systemic barriers often ensure that the structures of power remain intact, regardless of electoral outcomes. Unlike the myth of a single cabal, these systems don't require explicit coordination. Power aligns naturally when incentives, interests, and worldviews among elites converge. It becomes self-perpetuating, making systemic change feel impossible, even as people sense the unfairness embedded in their daily realities. And perhaps the most insidious aspect of these systems is that they allow influence without oversight and control without responsibility. Leaders can claim plausible deniability, corporations can hide behind market logic, and policymakers can blame complexity when inaction preserves the status quo. The real conspiracy is structural, not hidden. It's the quiet entrenchment of power, the erosion of accountability, and the normalization of inequality within systems designed to protect those already on top. If we focus only on the myth of a hidden hand, we miss the reality of how power actually operates, embedded in institutions, incentivized by profit, and shielded by a culture that confuses access with merit and wealth with worth. When people confront the complexity of these systems, fear and confusion can turn into the need for a simple answer, a scapegoat, an enemy. And throughout history, these fears have been weaponized, turning legitimate concerns about power into hatred against minorities and the powerless. So to truly understand power, we need to examine how false enemies distract us from real accountability. So now we're going to talk about that, the dangers of false enemies. Conspiracy theories often target minorities unjustly, transforming complex systems of power into simple stories of villainy, the good guy versus the bad guy. Anti-Semitic tropes have historically blamed Jewish communities for controlling world finance, leading to persecution and violence. Xenophobic narratives blame immigrants for societal decline, ignoring the systemic inequality and policy failures. While elite influence is real, reducing systemic critiques to ethnic or religious scapegoating misdirects public anger, protecting actual structures of power while fueling hate, division, and violence. If we genuinely want to challenge the systems of power that shape our world, we must learn to focus on structures, not scapegoats. History shows that when people are faced with complex crises, economic collapse, political instability, or social upheaval of any kind, there is a natural human tendency to seek simple explanations. It's easier to blame a person, a group, or a perceived enemy than to untangle the systemic injustices and interlocking incentives that produce the suffering. And throughout history, this impulse has been weaponized. Anti-Semitic conspiracies, for example, have falsely blamed Jewish communities for controlling banks, media, and governments, leading to their persecution, violence, and genocide, while the true architects of exploitation went unchallenged. Immigrants have been scapegoated for job losses and social strain, while the systemic issues of automation, deregulation, and wealth concentration remained unaddressed. Religious minorities have been blamed for moral decline, deflecting attention from the failures of corrupt elites. These false enemies distract us, channeling public anger toward those with the least power, rather than toward the structures that concentrate wealth, that extract labor, and who erode freedoms. When we simplify reality into a narrative of villains and scapegoats, we allow true injustices to persist unchallenged. We let the systems that prioritize profit over people, control over dignity, and short-term gains over collective well-being continue unexamined. It's more challenging to confront systems than to blame individuals or communities. Systems are abstract, embedded in laws, institutions, and norms. They require collective action, deep understanding, and sustained effort to reform. Yet if we fail to shift our focus from scapegoats to structures, we'll continue to repeat cycles of misplaced blame and violence and anger while the machinery of injustice keeps turning. So real change requires clarity, seeing how power functions, where it hides, and how it reinforces itself. It means resisting the temptation of easy answers and turning our attention to dismantling the systemic forces that exploit, oppress, and exclude. Only by confronting structures, not chasing scapegoats, can we create a world where justice is possible and accountability is real. But fear doesn't only manifest in finding enemies, it also transforms symbols and rituals into evidence of hidden control. From the Masonic compass to the owl at Bohemian Grove, people see signs of dark rituals shaping global policy. What is the truth behind these symbols and ceremonies? I'm going to try and uncover the reality of occult rituals and symbols within elite circles. Bohemian Grove is a private 2,700-acre campground in California, and it's hosted annual gatherings of business leaders, politicians, and artists since the late 19th century. Attendees, including former US presidents, corporate executives, participate in social events and symbolic ceremonies such as the cremation of care, a theatrical ritual involving an owl statue. While proponents view it as harmless fraternity bonding, its secrecy and elite guest list have fueled suspicions of hidden agendas, and conspiracy theorists interpret it as proof of sinister rituals.